This week on Dance of Joy, we talk about pretentious art world speak, meeting your heroes, and stupid Dennis. All that and more as we watch Season 2, Episode 16 of our favorite 80s hit sitcom, Perfect Strangers. Hello, and welcome to Dance of Joy, a Perfect Strangers rewatch podcast. My name is Sophia. I am your host, and joining me today is my favoriteest co-host and my number one brother. What's up, Imran?
Hi, Sophia. I'm here. I'm good. I'm ready to talk about art because, look, it's Friday, and way back when I was in art school, Fridays were the gallery opening nights.
Ooh.
Right? That was a lot of fun. You got to go around, see a lot of art.
Are we talking like black tie events, perhaps?
It wasn't that fancy, but the best thing was you got to see a lot of art, and most importantly, free snacks and drinks night long at every gallery opening. That was why we really went, because we were poor art school college students.
Well, what an appropriate memory for today, because today we're talking about Perfect Strangers Season 2, Episode 16, which is called Tux for Two.
Oh.
Tux for Two is, of course, a pun on a classic song called Tea for Two, which some people might know as being sung by Doris Day in the 1950 musical film Tea for Two.
Yeah, Tea for Two, Two for Tea.
Two for Tea.
A lovely Doris Day. That is a jazz standard. And, listener, grab the TV guide back in the day and cracked a fresh one open. Remember when you cracked a fresh TV guide? You
broke the spine?
Yeah, but then you get that hint of newsprint and ink.
Love that newsprint smell.
Always reminds me of going into comic book stores when I was a kid. Anyway, Smell that newsprint, listener, because in the TV guide, the description for this week's episode would say, Larry prays that Balky won't embarrass them at a formal party for a photographer Larry idolizes.
Oh, boy, this sounds high tension already.
What could go wrong?
This episode, like every other, stars Bronson Pinchot and Marklyn Baker, and it aired on February 4th, 1987.
Act 1 opens at lovely Ritz Discount with a funny gag that I'm surprised that it took them this long to get to. It's something that you're like, oh, obviously this is going to happen. What do you got? You got Balky with a shop vac. And you know hilarity will ensue. You ever worked one of these shop vacs, Sophia? They're super powerful.
I have not, but this whole scene reminded me of the delight that sometimes people feel when the first time they use first world modern appliances that maybe they haven't used before.
Listen, the delight, not only by immigrants. I got a shop. We had a flood. I got a wet vac, and I was like, oh my God, this thing is amazing. It's just sucking all the water out of the carpet like magic.
Nice.
So Balky's similarly amused as he lines up crumpled paper balls on the counter and he's sucking them in.
One after a time.
One by one. And of course he's going to look down at the shop vac as everybody, you're curious, wants to. And it sucks his face in and he tries to pull it around. And it's
the
sucking.
classic shop vac suck.
It's sucking the back of his head and he can't turn it off. And the shop vac has him. When Larry walks in and just turns the shop vac off calmly.
Very casually.
Yes.
He's like, oh, there's Balky in trouble. Turn it off.
Balky goes, thank you. I thought it was going to suck my brains out.
So, yeah, not only the delight, but the fright of these new modern appliances.
You got to be careful with
time you use them, you're like,
those
whoa.
shop vacs, man. They're strong.
So Larry's here and he's very excited. He's holding an envelope and he's happy and he's like, Balky, you're not going to believe what I just got in the mail. And Balky gets excited. He says, your letter from Publishers Clearinghouse, you may have already won.
Oh, that's first reference of the episode right away.
Yes. Tell our listeners who may not know this reference, what is Publishers Clearinghouse?
Oh, my God. This Publishers Clearinghouse started in the 50s and the 60s. Was the thing that you waited for in the mail. It was a thick envelope with a bunch of stamps of magazines and a possible multi-million-dollar winning letter or something. Like the thing all would say on the envelope, you may have won, open this now. But of course, the whole thing was a sweepstakes scam. Yes, it was a scheme scam.
To sell magazine subscriptions.
So you didn't end up with any money. What you ended up with was 17 magazine subscriptions and things like Golf Magazine. Why do I have this? I don't even play golf.
But one reference you may know that lived on in popular culture and in media, in television and stuff, was something Publishers Clearinghouse started doing around the late 80s. It was called a prize patrol. Some members of the team would knock on some people's doors with cameras and be like, surprise, you've won, and hand them a ginormous check that had a large amount on it. And this was like a very cultural thing that happened. Yeah, you see all the pictures. And so, not to go off on a weird tangent, I did a little more digging because I thought this was the thing where Ed McMahon, from the Tonight Show. Yes, Johnny. Ed McMahon would show up to your door with a giant check and confetti, right? Now, this is what I found out. It's kind of funny. Ed McMahon never worked for Publishers Clearinghouse. He worked for a company called America's Favorite Clearinghouse. It was a completely different... Oh, it was a competitive scheme.
It was a competitive sweepstakes company that would run ads the same time as Publishers Clearinghouse. Scheme. So everyone confused Ed McMahon with Publishers Clearinghouse. And Publishers Clearinghouse didn't do anything to help this.
No, because it was in their favor. Yes, it was in their favor.
So I don't think Publishers Clearinghouse ever showed up at your house. It was I don't know. The whole thing was crazy.
No, they did. Okay. It just both schemes.
By the way, there's a great documentary on HBO about the McDonald's Millions game, the Monopoly game. You got to check that out.
Okay, super tangents. Sorry. Siblings,
Ed McMahon had nothing to do with this. That's the point. So Larry explains that he's received an invitation. This is what he got in the mail. An invitation to a black tie gallery opening night party of the photographer Roger Morgan. This is the guy.
Roger Morgan.
The Roger Morgan. His inspiration to be a photographer, the guy he looks up to. He has a new exhibit. And he got invited because Roger Morgan, one of the judges of the Chicago Gazette photo contest, in which Larry placed 10th. I guess that's good.
Yes. So Larry's super excited. Balky hears all this and he's unimpressed. He's like, that's nice.
That's so funny.
And Larry's like, no, this is a big deal. And then Larry says, it's like me wanting to be a baseball player and meeting Pete Rose, or me wanting to be an actor and meeting Laurence Olivier. And then Balky gets excited. And he says, is it like me meeting the great sheep herder, Zimdog Zaki Batbat?
Zimdog Zaki Batbat.
Zimdog Zaki Batbat.
One of the greatest sheep herders. That Zimdog put up amazing numbers in that 08 season. Oh, my God.
Larry's just like, yes. And then Balky is super excited about going to this party. He's like, we're going to play pin the tail on the mule and bob for potatoes and do the limbo rack. And he starts doing the limbo motion. And Larry's like, no. He's gonna take Jennifer, of course, as his guest. And Balky feels a little bit hurt, and he says, why Jennifer? And Larry, oh gosh, being 1980s Larry says, because she's beautiful and I want her. Super cringe, Larry. Super cringe.
She's beautiful and I want her. Okay, Larry.
I believe this is not the first time we've heard him say, I want her.
It's not.
Balky, of course, is like, that's a good point. That's a very good point.
Very good point.
Which is like the third time in a small time that in 3 episodes, I think we've heard this.
The good point line. Yeah.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. So, but then Larry's like, look, if Jennifer can't make it, then you're next on the list.
I want to pause for a second. Let's remember Limbo Rock for a second, okay?
Okay.
The reason, the tune of Limbo Rock, the melody, the song, it's going to come up multiple times during the show in different forms.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes.
This is the very first incantation of Do the Limbo Rock. Yep. Okay, so that melody, Limbo Rock, has been introduced into Perfect Strangers canon, and it will come back. So as this happens, Tweeka said he exits his office. He's on his way out the door. And Balky's like, aren't you excited, Mr. Tweeka said? But Larry's got invited to a big black tie party event. And He just goes, color me excited.
That's exactly how he says it, too.
And just leaves. He doesn't care. Great delivery as Jennifer and Marianne enter wearing their flight attendant uniforms.
Their uniforms, and they're in a bit of an argument. And Jennifer's annoyed, and she tells Larry that Marianne mixed up their destinations. They're not, in fact, doing a quick trip to New York, as they thought. They're going to New Zealand.
Oh, no.
And so she won't be back in time for the party the next night. And then Marianne goes, New York, New Zealand, it could happen to anybody.
Oh, boy.
And then Balky gets excited about New Zealand, the sheep capital of the world. How lucky can you get?
How lucky can you get it, Marianne? It's like, see, somebody's excited. So Jennifer's like, look, I'm sorry, Larry. I hope you can find someone to go with you. Marianne says they better get going because they have a lot to pack since they're flying back through New Delhi. And then as they leave, Jennifer goes, you didn't tell me anything about New Delhi. Marianne goes, I don't know anything about New Delhi.
I love that exchange right there. I don't know anything about it. But also New Delhi serves perfectly as the third beat to this joke right here. New York, New Zealand, New Delhi.
Of course she doesn't know anything about New Delhi. Why would he?
Yeah, I love that. You didn't tell me anything about New Delhi. Well, I don't know anything about New Delhi.
So then this hilarious, adorable moment, Balky stands next to Larry and he's just kind of playing with his hands and bouncing his fingers and he's like, so who did you say was next on your list? He starts to mouth the limbo rock again. Larry's like, oh boy.
So that was a very quick act one. And then we move into the next act, which starts the next evening. And I think this is like the bulk of the comedy here for this episode. The next evening, it's in the apartment. And Larry walks in with a couple of tuxedos that he's rented for the party. And just as that happens, Balky comes out of the bathroom into the living room and he's like, I'm ready to party. And he is wearing what we will forever know as the Meposian tuxedo.
Yes.
And he comes out and he strikes a pose, a dramatic pose, and he goes, how do I look? Now, what is Balky's outfit?
He's got, I think he looks sharp.
Oh, of course he looks
this
sharp.
Outfit. He's got short pants on that stop above the knee, knee-high black socks, pointy dress shoes. So a little bit of his upper knees are showing, but then he's got a lovely embroidered, patterned cummerbund, a short jacket with a patterned lapel and lovely black tie, and a tiny black tie. What else? He got embroidered cuffs.
He's got embroidery on the cuffs of his sleeves, and the jacket sleeves are a little bit shorter, so you see his shirt sleeves underneath, and a tiny black tie like that flops.
And you can see his legs, but I'm like, dude looks sharp. I would wear that. That looks good,
I like it. But Larry was not having it. Larry's like, what is that? And he calmly tells Balky, you're not going to meet Roger Morgan dressed like that. This is a black tie event, not a bullfight. Okay, Larry is being culturally insensitive again.
He does look a little bit like a bullfighter, though. I thought that was kind of funny. But yes, Larry's just being harsh.
And then Balky's like, I don't get it. I am wearing a black tie. And Larry's like, no, black tie means you must wear a tuxedo. And Balky, this is where we get our first, well, of course it does. Don't be ridiculous. I'll go splash some on.
I thought this line was buried. It happened so quickly and it moves on. Yeah. He thinks tuxedo is a cologne.
Something that you splash
He's like, I'll go put on some tuxedo. So Larry holds up one of the tuxedos and tells Balky he's rented them. Balky's like, ooh, what is this? And then when Balky hears he's rented it, he goes, you paid somebody money so I can wear his clothes? But I already have clothes. Larry goes, but not like these. And he holds up his own matching tuxedo. And Balky's like, but if we're dressed alike, exactly how will people tell us apart? And Larry just looks at him and goes, dental records.
Larry explains that this is not the kind of party where you're supposed to have fun. Now, this harks back. This is like classic Larry character that we've already seen. Remember when they went to Vegas and he's like, you're taking all the fun out of this fun experience. Larry just kills the fun with his paranoia, his worries, his like type A-ness. He overthinks everything.
What happened in the dinner date episode, too?
Dinner date, this is the most important night of my life.
Just pressure
just like
on everything.
This art show is the most important thing, right? So here we see it again. And Larry's literally Larry-splaining, like, you're not supposed to have fun at this party. And Balky's like, wait a minute. Everybody is going to be wearing black suits and nobody's going to be having any fun. What the difference is between this party and a funeral?
Good point.
And Larry's like, there's no body, but I can fix that.
Oh,
He's
boy.
getting annoyed. He's making threats. He's making threats now. So Larry insists that, again, this party is very important.
Yes.
And it's vital that they behave properly because Roger Morgan has been known to take young photographers under his wing and make them what they are today. To which Balky says, what are they today?
What are they?
And Larry goes, photographers.
Yes.
So I love this exchange right here because it's Balky. They're using Balky's dialogue, right, and his innocence to highlight like how ridiculous everything Larry thinks is super important, like how ridiculous those things really are. Like he's so driven, he's so ambitious, but he's like he made them he made young photographers what they are today. Well, what are they? They're photographers.
Slightly
Like,
older photographers.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like it highlights how we can get in our heads about ridiculous things.
Appleton's neurosis, Larry's neurosis, perfectly on display as Larry tries to prepare Balky for what to expect. They're going to do a little role play. They're going to pretend the living room is the photo gallery, and they start with Balky pretends there's a picture of puppies. He goes, "Oh, puppies!"
Aww.
So Larry's trying to get him into role play with a drink in his hand, but Balky, of course, gets bogged down into details. First he wants a Coke, then he wants a Diet Coke, then he wants a ginger ale, and then Larry's like, "Okay, no drinks. Nobody has drinks." But then Balky's like, "Do we have a little chip, little pretzel chip, little dip?" He goes, "Nothing, no food,
Nothing.
no drinks. Let's move
Nothing.
on." This is the important part. Larry says, he asks Balky, "What do you think of this photograph?" Balky goes, "I think it's pretty." Larry goes, "Wrong."
Wrong.
Balky goes, "I think it's ugly." Larry, "Wrong," again from Larry. And then Balky goes, "I think it's pretty ugly," and laughs at his own joke.
Laughs at his own joke, slapping his leg.
Larry is not amused. He's super stressed. He explains that this is the kind of party, it doesn't matter what you think of the art, right? He goes, this is a great line. He goes to Balky. He goes, "Balky, what matters is that they think you think what they think. Got it?" Balky goes, "Oh, I don't think so."
I don't think so.
Perfectly
So
timed.
then, yeah. And so then the next bit is, again, Larry splaining. And what he's Larry splaining is something that's like American cultural logic that we take for granted, but it really sounds silly.
It's also something that is in the pretentious art community.
Yeah.
This exists.
This is what he explains to Balky. When someone asks you what you think, you should ask them what they think and then tell them the same thing.
Yes.
And of
There you
course, this
go.
makes no sense to Balky because he says, but they already know what they think. And Larry says, exactly. And they want to hear the same thing from you. So let's try it again. So this is just like this thing, like here's what's expected.
Yeah.
And you're trying to game every human interaction to
Here's how you act
give
at an art
people what they
gallery.
want.
Yeah.
They're going to try it again. So they're looking at the picture and Balky walks away from him. He's like, "I'm choosing a new picture. It's enough with the puppy." He goes to look at another, picture in this imaginary scenario. Larry is like super annoyed by this time, but he's remaining calm. And he walks up to Balky and says, "What do you think of this picture?" And Balky is about to give his opinion when he remembers what Larry said. He's like, what do you think? And Larry says, "I like it. How about you?" And Balky goes, "I like it too." And Larry tells him he did a good job. And then he's like, "All right, let's try on the tuxedo." He's like, "All right, you got that." And by the way, Bronson Pinchot this whole time is trying very hard not to laugh.
Yeah.
And that's just a delight always to watch. So they go over back to the coat hanger area. Larry takes Balky's tuxedo jacket and puts it on him, and it immediately looks ridiculous. Okay, it's too small. The sleeves are too small. It's tight around his shoulders, and Larry tries to pull down the shoulder and rips the whole thing. The arms rip off the shoulders at the seams. And Larry's like, "I guessed at the size." And Balky's like, "Guess again."
Yeah.
But also, isn't that an expensive thing to happen?
Who's going to pay for this tuxedo? It's
You
a
just
rental,
ruined
Appleton.
this rental tuxedo.
It's going to cost more when you return it. Before we
exactly.
get to the final Act 3, listener, I just want to let you know we love doing this show. We also love coffee.
Love coffee.
If you love listening to this show, consider showing your support and buying us coffee. Visit our website, danceofjoypod.com/support, or go to the main page. There is a button there that says buy us a coffee, and it's a quick way to leave a tip, show your support, show your love. It helps. Everything goes back in the show. It helps us keep making the show every week.
Yep. Act 3. We open with an exterior shot of this art gallery.
Yeah, I don't know what this building is. I looked at it carefully. It's just some random building.
Yeah, there's no little hints. If you're a Chicago person and you happen to recognize this building that's in the opening shot of Act 3, let us know. Anyway, then it's quickly cuts to the inside, and we see written on the wall, it's the Milgram Gallery, where this Roger Morgan photo exhibit is taking place. And the scene inside is like very like what you would imagine a 1980s like hoity-toity photo art gallery event would be, like all these people like dressed up glamorously.
Tuxedos and gowns everywhere.
Yeah. There's like waiters walking around offering hors d'oeuvres on trays. So Larry and Balky enter, and Balky's in the Meposian tuxedo because the other one got ripped, and we find out later that the tuxedo place was closed, so they couldn't get a new one. And once they walk in, like all these like snooty people are like giving him shocked looks or like mean looks, or
they're causing a scene already.
Yeah, because of his tuxedo or because of his Meposian outfit. So Larry's a little bit embarrassed. Larry's very embarrassed by Balky. He tells Balky, it's fine, just stand behind me. And then Balky's like, which one is Roger Morgan? And Larry looks around. He's like, I don't see him. But there's the photo editor of Shutter magazine, Dick Jorgensen, who won a Pulitzer Prize the year before. And oh, look, there's Margaret Milgram, who owns the gallery. And he says, and Larry's like fanboying, starstruck at these people. And he's looking around and he goes, I never thought I'd be rubbing elbows with so many important people. And as he says that, this like beautiful woman in like a sparkly dress walks by, and Balky's like, I'd love to rub out those elbows. Ew, now Balky's turning into a creep too.
It's rubbing off from Appleton. But Larry goes, don't rub anything. And then he goes, go
it's
mingle.
Just an expression.
Balky goes, what does that mean? He goes, talk to people without touching them. And so Larry casually walks over to Margaret Milgram, where she stands with a young gentleman in a tuxedo.
Okay, wait. So stop. Margaret Milgram is this older woman.
She's quite old, yes.
Yeah,
and
like
she is like with a very younger man.
Young, fresh-faced
I'm
boy.
not sure what this relationship is. We get a little bit of clues later. It's kind of strange.
Yes.
Anyways, young man, old white woman who's the owner of the gallery. They're looking at the Robert, what's his name? Roger Morgan photograph called Hitchhiker on the Road to Bitterness on a pillar. And she goes, this is the essence of Roger's best work. And Balky shows up on the other side as Larry's like eavesdropping, and he's horrified. And Balky shows up and he goes, do you really think so? And then Miss Milgram's about to talk to him, and then she looks at Balky's clothes up and down in disgust. And then she asks him what he thinks. And Balky just repeats what she said. He goes, I think it's the best of his essence, too. And she's like, oh, she scoffs.
She's disgusted by that.
And then this part is so funny. He goes, we have all of his work at home on a calendar. And she goes, a calendar? He goes, yes, this picture is September. And then he goes, it's right over that toilet. And she gets more disgusted. She goes, a toilet? Please. And he goes, oh, it's right out the door to your left, Mrs. Milgram. And then she pulls the old,
clutches her pearls.
And Balky goes, well, in that case, let me suggest a high-fiber diet.
I never.
The old
clutching
classic.
The pearls, yeah.
She goes, Dennis, I need a drink. And they leave the scene as Balky has clearly flustered Mrs. Milgram, and Larry just watched all this horrified.
And again, if you watch that line again, well, in that case, let me suggest a high-fiber diet. Bronson Pinchot is on the verge. He wants to laugh so bad. Larry, however, is mortified. He comes over. He's like, new rule. Don't say anything unless you've got something caught in your throat. And Balky's like, well, look, I was just doing what you told me to do. I was just agreeing with her. He's like, but don't you think it's a good picture? And Larry says, all of his pictures are good. I looked at this one all through September. A call back to the calendar.
In the toilet.
And then Larry's like, I think it might have been better if he'd shot it with a wide angle lens.
Oh.
Made the car seem a little more further away, a little more desolate. And Balky's super impressed. He says, boy, you know a lot for a guy who's never sold a picture. It's that classic Balky compliment coupled with
insult.
And Larry also adds that he wonders why Roger Morgan only shoots in black and white.
That's a pretty good critique, though, with the wide-angle lens there. Look, Larry knows
his stuff.
He knows his stuff. He knows what he's talking about.
So then the waiter shows up with a tray, holding up a tray with tented fingers of hors d'oeuvres, and he offers it to Balky, and Balky takes the whole tray.
Of course he does.
And Larry's like, no, you have to give it back and just take one thing. And Balky's like, he gave it to me. He said, no, just take one. But I thought the funny thing here is the whole time Balky has the tray, the waiter's tented hand from under the tray stays in that position and stays tented. So Balky just puts the tray back on it.
He must have arthritis from being a waiter so long. His hand is just molded in there.
So he just puts the tray back on it, and then he points to something on the tray, and he goes, what this? Waiter says, those are finger sandwiches.
This is so great.
Those are finger sandwiches. And then Balky makes this disgusted face like he's going to vomit.
Because you see in his head, he's thinking about finger sandwiches. And I was like, this is the worst name for a sandwich. Who named these? I get it. They look like little, you could eat them with your finger, but this is not a good name for a sandwich.
So Larry's like, no, Balky, it's not what you think.
He's throwing up in his mouth a little bit, Balky, the whole time. Yeah.
And so he's like, it's not what you think, just take something. He takes, and then the waiter suggests, this is a little funny exchange. The waiter's like, perhaps a cocktail, Frank? And he says, oh, my name's not Frank, it's Balky, and I think cocktails are those little drinks over there. The waiter thanks Balky, and he's like, I'll try to remember that, and he walks away, and then Balky turns to Larry, he's like, boy, you'd think they'd get a waiter who knew what he was doing.
I love this bit because it's kind of like something stupid.
It's a classic, right?
Yeah, and it's something stupid I do at these things all the time. Whenever I'm at a thing, and the guy comes up, and he'll be like, shrimp? I'll be like, what'd you call me? Real man? And then I'm like, just kidding, give me the shrimp. It's so dumb. It's so dumb, but I can't wait for the shrimp guy to come around so I can use my joke.
It's a classic gag.
Yeah. Cocktail Frank?
Frank.
I'm not Frank.
And don't call me Frank. Yes.
Surely you can't be serious.
Then Roger Morgan enters with this entourage of hoity art people following him around. This whole entourage of fancy people.
He's got a posse.
And he is, interestingly, he's wearing a jacket and this white turtleneck sweater, kind of casual for this event. And Balky notices. He's like, he's not wearing a black tie.
No, he's not.
No wonder everyone's staring at him. And Larry lets that pass, but because he's super fanboying now and he's very nervous. And he walks over, approaches Roger Morgan, and he starts to stutter, saying and the first thing he says, it's such a measure to pleat you. Which is so funny. Measure to
pleat you.
Of course, he means it's a pleasure to meet you. And he tries again to introduce himself, but he's stumbling, he's bumbling. He can't even speak his own name. Balky's feeding him the words. He's like, Appleton. And then Roger Morgan just looks at Larry and he's like, do you have something caught in your throat? And Larry's like, I'm fine. And he tries to compose himself.
And then that young boy, stupid Dennis comes by. The young man, I already hate Dennis.
Who's so snooty.
He's so snooty. He walks up to Mr. Morgan and he asks him why he only shoots in black and white. And Balky goes, cousin Larry was wondering the same thing, which he was. But Larry is so embarrassed, he grabs Balky, pulls him away, saying, that's it, Balky. I blew my big chance. It's over. I can't go over there. And then Balky invokes the greatest sheep herder's name again. He goes, cousin, if it were me and the great Zimdog Zaki Botbot were standing over there, I would hope you would do the same thing. As he picks Larry up and puts him down right in front of Mr. Morgan, in front of everybody, going, Mr. Morgan, my cousin Larry, again.
Mr. Morgan's like, yes, I remember. So then Larry tries to speak again, but again, no words are coming out of his mouth. So Balky speaks for him, saying, he's like, my cousin Larry admires you. And Larry's like, I do. I really do. Balky says, he wants to be as great as you are someday. And Larry's like, I would. And Mr. Morgan's like, that's the great thing about photography. It's a nonverbal medium. Ouch. Zing. Mr. Morgan is roasting Larry right now.
Yeah, this is going bad.
And then Balky makes a very bold move, although to Balky it's very innocent. He doesn't realize it's bold. He asks Roger Morgan if he didn't think he took that photograph with the wrong lens.
What?
And then there's like a collective gasp of all these art people around.
I never. The nerve of this
and
one.
Larry is mortified. And then snooty, pompous Dennis,
Stupid Dennis,
steps up and he's like, no one talks to Mr. Morgan like that. And he tells Mr. Morgan, he's like, don't worry, I'll take care of him. Ugh, who is this kid?
I hate Dennis.
And then he looks around for his support, right?
Yes.
And he's like, Margaret.
The old lady.
Margaret. And Margaret is nowhere to be seen, the old lady. And so he like runs off to find her. And Roger Morgan says, don't mind Dennis. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. And Balky, of course, takes this literally and says, must have been painful for his mama.
I love it. I love it because it reminds me of the show Silver Spoons. And also, that saying is weird. Yes, it must. You gotta have a silver spoon in your mouth coming out. It's gonna hurt. And then once again, Larry drags Balky away because he's even more humiliated. And he asks Balky, do you know what you've done? Roger Morgan no longer thinks I'm an idiot, but he knows I'm an idiot, and I come from a family of idiots. So mean. And Balky is just frustrated. He doesn't understand all these weird social rules where, you think one thing and say another. Balky's like, people should just...
confusing.
It is. He thinks people should just be themselves. Except Dennis. He should be somebody else.
I love it.
Which is a great line.
Even Balky realizes that Dennis is a snooty
Dennis is such
young man.
Oh, I hate Dennis, who shows up right then with Mrs. Milgram, with this old lady, points at Balky, and he goes, Those are they. What does that mean? What did he say before? What is the lead up to those are they?
Nothing. He just comes and
yeah, but what did he tell her to come over and be show me them. Those are they.
I love this line. He just shows up with like nose in the air.
Those are
and he's
they.
Like, points with his finger. Those are they.
It's early, pronoun usage
Those
switch.
Are they.
Those are they.
And then Mrs. Milgram says, pardon me, but how did you get in here? And Larry's like overly apologetic. He goes, he's with me. And she goes, I was talking to you.
He thinks he's talking about Balky.
And Larry's like, well, I was invited. And Balky's like, yes, and I'm his +1, his guest. And she goes, well, I'm uninviting both of you. You, pointing at Larry, are a blithering fool. And then you, pointing at Balky, are the nerve of you showing up dressed as a matador and uttering the most tactless and inane dribble. And then here's an interesting twist, right? This whole episode, we've seen Larry disparaging Balky's clothing, his culture, his way of thinking. But now Larry, when somebody else does it, right? It's like your best friend or your sibling. Like you can call them out and roast them, but
how dare you?
But nobody else can. When somebody else does it, Larry steps up right away in Balky's defense. He's like, wait a minute.
Wow.
Balky's the only one here who has the guts to say what he thinks and don't talk about his clothes either. He's proud of his heritage. And then this young snooty Dennis and old snooty Mrs. Milgram are absolutely appalled. And Dennis literally says, no one speaks to her like that. And then Balky goes, well, I'm sorry, but your Nana was being rude. And then they both clutch their pearls.
She goes, Nana?
Nana? They're super offended. Clutching their pearls, and she's like, I'm going to call security.
Wait,
Dennis.
And they storm off. So is Dennis her, boy toy? What is going on here?
This is definitely like we're a family-friendly show, but this is definitely like a relationship of advantages.
It's one of those May, December, but this is like real late December. He's a male gold digger, maybe.
Yes.
Okay, so that's established. Because I was like,
No, they're definitely a couple,
yeah. But their ages are so exaggerated.
So far, it's a Harold and Maude situation, but with rich, snooty people.
And I was like, it looks like his Nana. I'm no blame Balky. Larry says, okay, let's go. And they're walking towards the exit as Roger Morgan stops them. And he wants to talk to Balky and Larry about the lens comment that they made. And Larry nervously is like, oh, no, Balky he was only repeating a stupid remark I said. Roger Morgan goes, it wasn't stupid. It was very perceptive. Larry's like, what? It was? He goes, well, It's what I really thought. I'm not ashamed to admit it, Larry says. Balky goes, not now, anyway. So Roger Morgan asks Larry, what lens would you have used to shoot that? And Larry goes, I probably would have used the 28 millimeter. Roger says that's exactly the lens he was going to use, but his camera bag was locked in the car. And then Balky gets, cousin Larry does that all the time. And Roger Morgan goes, it's refreshing to hear an honest criticism. He goes, usually when I ask people what they think, they turn around and say, what do you think? And Larry does this nervous. He goes, I hate that. As Balky's behind him going, wait a minute. I love, and then Balky tells Roger that Larry won 10th place in the photo contest he helped judge. And Roger said he remembers the picture. Oh. And that if the committee had listened to his opinion, Larry would have done better than 10th place. Wow. And Larry, that's a huge compliment. Larry is elated. It means so much to him. And Roger goes, look, I was a beginner once too. He tells Larry to drop some more of his photos off at his hotel and that maybe he could be some help. Oh my God.
Lovely. This is Larry's dream come true. And then Roger Morgan looks over at Balky and he goes, nice outfit, kid. And there's a beat, and he goes, very me-posian.
Oh, my God.
Get out of the city.
He called me-posian.
He said, very me-posian. And now Balky is surprised and just as delighted as Larry. And he looks up at Roger Morgan, and he goes, Hocha devocha odoyoye. And Roger Morgan looks back at him and goes, Dach mach bing bing, and walks away.
Wait a minute.
Mic drop, walks away, and his
amazing.
entourage followed him.
Okay, wait. There's a couple of things I love about this whole what just happened.
Devocha odoyoye.
First of all, we have another character acknowledging Meepos for the first time. Nobody else has.
But in this context, in that character, it kind of makes sense to me.
Of course,
because
yes.
It's like a snooty art guy or a photographer who probably has been on Meepos and collected artifacts or made photos or whatever.
He's a cultured artist.
Super cultured.
Yeah, he's traveled the world. But the other thing I love is, there's situations where, and maybe we'll talk about this later, where you meet, you want to meet someone you admire, a celebrity. And when you end up having like an unintentional moment where they reveal a little story that they share with you, like it's such a great feeling. So they got a really special interaction with Roger Morgan, a little joke just by being.
Bing, bing.
And then he goes, Dak Mak Bing Bing. And he even has, Roger Morgan, you surprised me.
So here's my question for you, for us, and for listeners. What do we think was said in this little exchange?
Oh my God, what did he say?
So Balky says, Hocha devocha odoyoye.
Did it sound like a question?
And Morgan says, Dach mach bing bing. No, they were both just acknowledgments. I imagine he's saying something like, you're a fellow Meposian, or some kind of greeting or
and
acknowledgement.
Roger Morgan is like, you know it, brother, or something.
Yeah, or it's some
compadre.
like colloquialism that works in two parts, like a common call and response, like that is like a proverb or something where one Meposian says, good things come to blah, blah, blah. And then there's a specific response like, Ach, mach, bing, bing.
That's so funny when he just goes, Ach, mach, bing, bing.
Yeah, like with his big smile and walks away. I was
like, oh my God, he speaks Meposian too. This guy is great.
So then we get to lesson time, and there's no music announcing lesson time this episode. It was a bit of a little blackout. So
I wasn't even sure there was a lesson time this episode, but I'm glad you found it.
No, there is. It was the last beat. This episode, by the way, was structured a little strange. Yeah. I called the acts as I saw them. And typically we break up the acts by when there's a blackout.
When there's a commercial
rather
break.
than a simple scene change without a blackout. But this time, the first one came super early, so it seems Act 1 was very short.
It had two short first two acts, and then like half of it was the third act.
The third act, and then there was another blackout just before lesson time.
Oh, there was.
Yeah. So they're back at the apartment, and Larry is, he's got all his like photographs strewn out on the table. He's got manila envelopes. He's trying to pick out which ones to take over to Roger Morgan in the hotel. And he holds one up and he asks Balky, what do you think about this one? And then Balky like starts to speak and then he pauses. He's like, what do you think? And then Larry's like, no, we're not at the gallery anymore. Like, I really need your opinion. And Balky, here's the lesson. this is Balky telling Larry the lesson. You don't need my opinion. Everyone has an opinion. Me, Roger Morgan, even Dennis and his nana.
Nana.
But the only opinion that matters is yours.
Yeah.
And you should bring Roger Morgan the photos that you like best.
Good advice.
That's the lesson.
That's a good lesson.
And so Larry's like, you're right. He picks his photos and he grabs the envelope and they head over to the door. They grab their coats to go head to the hotel. And Larry's super excited. He's like, this could be great. If Roger Morgan likes these, I could be working in a newspaper in a couple weeks. I could be in a new apartment in a couple of months. In a year, I could win a Pulitzer. Okay, here's again Larry getting caught up in his planning,
yes.
in his structured planning.
More
but
pressure.
Also, I think about this middle one here. I could be in a new apartment in a couple of months.
Big goal.
That apartment is really good for a 24-year-old who works in a discount shop.
At least he has goals, though. He's setting up goals.
Yeah. I was like, why do you want a new, I don't know. Anyway, I think the apartment is pretty good for where he's at. And then, so he's like, in a year, I could win a Pulitzer, if this goes well. And Balky's like, and if he doesn't like them? And Larry, without a beat, goes, I'll jump off the Sears Tower.
Oh,
so this is
Larry.
like how he thinks. He makes these concrete plans.
It's all or nothing.
All
with
or
him.
nothing,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So much pressure. And Balky says, don't you think here's part 2 of lesson time. Don't you think you're getting a little crazy again? Isn't there somewhere in the middle? Which we've heard from him again when Larry was
not
having
good
trouble
with the middle.
knowing how to have fun.
Yeah. He says, I'm not good with the middle.
Right. He said that before, and Larry says, you're right. How about I give him the picture and hope for the best? Okay, so he's learning. And then the last line of this episode is Balky saying, I second that emotion.
Reference.
He means to say, I second that notion, like I agree. But we get a reference to a song that was a huge hit in 1967 by Smokey Robinson.
Yeah,
The
great
Miracles.
song.
You may remember it. If you feel like loving me, if you got the notion, I second that emotion.
It's a great song.
Exactly. A great little cultural reference to end the episode. Roll credits.
Okay, so here's the first question this all made me think of. Is there someone out there to you, Sophia, that you look up to that would reduce you to a blubbering mess and make you say it's a measure to please you?
It happened. It happened about a year ago.
Oh, did
this
it?
time.
Oh, my God,
It was
recently.
about February.
Okay.
This is super specific, and some people may know, but
Well, that Roger Morgan thing is super specific.
that's
to
true
Larry.
too. That's true. Well, I mean, in the context of this show, if Bronson Pinchot called up, I would be like,
I'd be
on our
fine.
show.
I could talk to him. He'd be fine. But who
I
was
mean,
it?
you'd think, okay, it was the cast of Freestyle Love Supreme, Broadway run of Freestyle Love Supreme.
Oh my God, who was it? The whole cast.
All of them.
Oh my God.
Except for Lin-Manuel Miranda wasn't there, but like Utkarsh Ambudkar,
The
who
Indian dude
did
was
that
there.
rap
Yeah.
at the Oscars.
He's great.
Last year, and he's an actor. He's been on the Mindy Project and also, Pitch Perfect, all this stuff. And then
Was Daveed Diggs there?
Daveed Diggs was also not there.
Oh, he wasn't there. Okay.
It was,
So you got a little.
but everyone else who was on Broadway, who are also very awesome,
got a little
people,
speechless?
and I got very speechless.
A little heated. I
was like, I felt silly asking for a picture, but like they were there, so I was like, can we get a picture? All these people. So
I don't know who that would be. I'm not sure. I'm trying to think of I look up to a lot of artists, a lot of. Stan Lee passed away like a year ago. Maybe Stan would have been one, but like, oh my God.
Had you never met him at like a convention or anything?
No, I never paid for the opportunity. And he came into his late 80s and 90s, late in his life.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think because I don't know until I meet them because they're just people. But there's always somebody that you just like you look up to so much.
I fangirl over a lot of random people.
What if it was Lin-Manuel Miranda? Could you talk to him?
Oh my
Could
God.
you find the words?
I mean, I think I would because I imagine he's just the kind of guy that makes people feel comfortable, especially fans.
Yeah,
he's got so many.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be insane.
The other comment I had about this episode was it reminded me a lot of what I learned going to art school in the 90s as an illustration major. You learn, every week you have a project that you put it up for the class to see and you critique it. So you quickly learn how to talk about art. You learn how to talk about art in a meaningful way, but you also learn how to talk about art in kind of a roundabout, completely meaningless way. So I learned
fake it till you make it way.
Yes, and so they mix in very close. A lot of it is pure BS and pretension. Some of it is real. You have to be crafty with how you mix it. So I learned a couple things.
Okay.
First of all, whenever you work on a piece, you put it up. However it ends out, you just go, I intended to do this the whole time. You
Really?
Never admit that,
Never admit it was an
trying
accident.
to do something else and then I'd be like, this is, and then whether it's not what you intended, you figure out what that message is and you're like, I wanted to say this and this is what I did. It's just a little hack. But you do, it reminded me about talking about, but there is a meaningful, substantial way. But then sometimes there's a piece at the Art Institute in Chicago, and it's called Blue Panel, and it's a blue panel.
I know it. Yeah,
right, and it's
blue.
all it is. It's like a rhombus. It's not a square. It's blue. So imagine standing there talking about Blue Panel. Sometimes it really frustrates me, but things like Jackson Pollock's, I can get into that, man. You could stare at those and just lose yourself. But I thought it was hilarious.
What else do you remember as common things you're supposed to say?
You go, it's very grounded, or you're like,
grounded.
Yes, you're like, I love you say, I love the composition. It draws me in. I love you could say things like, I love how it leads the eye around. That's a good one that works on anything. Yeah.
Okay. Small side note. I just watched a movie called Velvet Buzzsaw.
Oh yeah. That has, who's in that?
Jake Gyllenhaal.
Who's the girl? She just got cast in something cool.
It's the girl from Stranger Things is in it, is one of the girls from Stranger Things, and Toni Collette is in it.
Oh, Toni Collette's great.
But it's art world satire / horror.
Is it any good?
It's very good, yeah.
Yeah.
Recommend.
Zawe Ashton is in it, and the reason I know her is because she was cast in the new Captain Marvel 2 movie as the villain.
Okay,
but
yeah.
I don't know anything about this actress, but much like...
No, she was good, yeah.
She's good. And I know Gyllenhaal, he was Mysterio in Spider-Man. So they got some...
Yeah, and they all play this, every character in there is a super, weird, pretentious art person
with crazy.
With, very funny art world names.
Yeah.
Like Morph. And,
well, it's like Banksy.
Yeah.
The art world is insane. I want to get into it a little bit later in PS Today because I have some more thoughts.
Okay, so let's talk about a couple interesting facts here. Larry references and we see this happening occasionally as we're doing this podcast and going through these episodes of Perfect Strangers. Larry references a photo contest that he won, and we're actually going to know a little bit more about this photo contest in the Chicago Gazette because that episode was filmed first but aired later. So we're going to just keep that in mind. We're going to know more about this contest that he won that was judged by Roger Morgan.
It's funny because the last episode of this season is the one where he's talking about entering the contest in this episode. But this is a thing that happened to a lot of shows. It was kind of common. You would film a show in a certain order, but it was up to the network sometimes to present the airing order, and they would put it out of order.
What would affect those decisions of changing the order of broadcast?
It may have to do with holiday breaks or seasonal things, or the fact that
subject matter,
maybe contractually. I don't know why, but it happens. It happened a lot to a lot of TV shows. Yeah. So the airing order, but then it screws up the narrative. But a lot of these things don't have that tight of a narrative that it's a big deal.
And then again, remember, we were back in 1987 where nobody could Google anything or even remember last week's episode. You had to wait a whole week. So even if the narrative got a little fudged, most likely viewers would just not notice it, right?
Exactly.
Because no one's sitting there with a notebook maybe, I don't know, some people would be, but you can't unless you had a VCR and we're recording, you can't easily go back to check. So it was a different world watching sitcoms then. By the way, Different World, also an excellent
sitcom.
Also a
sitcom, yes. Great shit.
Okay, so also we have a mention of the great sheep herder Zimdog Zakibatbat.
Zimdog Zakibatbat.
And
I have his trading card, by the way. I think it's worth money.
The sheep herder trading card.
Yeah.
Just remember this name because it comes back again later in the third season. We hear about the brothers Zaki Batbat, Mookie, and Grinky.
Oh, there's more Zaki Batbats.
So maybe it's just a common name on Meepos, Zaki Batbat.
Let's talk a little bit of some of these supporting players, starting with Margaret Milgram.
Well, I know.
Toilet, please. Oh, it's right over there to your left. Margaret Milgram, also obviously very old in this, but she's been acting since the 40s. Mostly known.
And who is she? Her name is Carol Bruce.
Her name is Carol Bruce. Now, what's funny about this is 1987, she does Perfect Strangers. Just before the same year, she has a cameo appearance as a character named Joy in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles with great Steve Martin, John Candy. Those Aren't Pillows. I love that movie. It's the best. You can watch that movie every Thanksgiving. So she was still working until late 90s.
She's been in a lot of stuff.
And then we have, of course, Roger Morgan, played by a dude named James Green, who was known for, he had some cameos in Patch Adams and some Star Treks. But there's two actors named James Green.
He looked very familiar, actually. Like I've seen him in a lot of
He's done lots of television. Everything from, so he was in Max Headroom, Knots Landing, a lot of...
just one of those common faces that
Alienation. He was in Frasier. He has passed away, of course.
Frasier.
Oh, he was in, here's his most recent thing. He was in Parks and Rec. Councilman Milton. In Parks and Rec. He was also Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He had a couple of...
I think I remember. I think I recognize him from probably Parks and Rec or Frasier.
Oh, he was in a Modern Family episode, too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Look at that.
That is your Roger Morgan.
Yeah. It all starts with Perfect Strangers.
Yes, it does.
Also, this is the first episode that we are introduced to Balki's Meposian tuxedo. It's not the last time we're going to see this, but it's the first time. And in fact, it shows up in the next season when the opening credits are redone. It features prominently in the opening montage. We already described the outfit earlier.
I love the Meposian tuxedo. I would wear that. I would buy that.
You would wear it? You would go bare-kneed to a black tie event?
Absolutely. And I just thought it was funny how people were shocked to see him because it really wasn't that outside of like crazy something to wear. But I was that guy in high school in the senior year where I was wearing Pakistani traditional. I was that annoying kid who's throwing my culture. I'm cultured. I'm not from here. Like,
yes, you were. We all went through that phase.
And now I realize it was annoying and dumb and just attention grabbing and we were teenagers. But what are you going to do?
But it's what you do when you're 17.
Some people thought it was cool, and maybe some people were like, oh, that looks comfortable. And it was very comfortable.
Well, it was very brave of you.
I was that kid.
To wear that.
But this tuxedo makes another appearance. Bronson Pinchot wore it as Balki to present an award with Mark Linn-Baker at the first American Comedy Awards in 1987. Sophia, I have a clip. It's on YouTube.
A clip.
I'll put a link in the show notes. It's quite hilarious.
It's a very funny clip, yeah.
I will play just a little bit of the beginning where they show up, and there's a huge applause for them when they first get there.
The nominees for Funniest TV Star and a Special Mailer...
Wait. What are you doing?
The nominees for Funniest TV Star and a Special...
Wait. What are you doing?
I'm reading the nominees.
No, I mean, where is your character?
I'm not going to do it tonight. I forgot to tell you.
You're not going to do it?
No, I'm in this incredible, like, right brain mode.
A right brain mode.
And like the language, the character and the accent, the language center, I feel, are all on the left.
Is that
brain.
Right? I didn't know that.
That is correct. Mm-hmm. And there's this incredible activity over here, and there's just nothing over here. It's just
tingling.
It's
tingling,
so
yes.
Tingling over here. There's just nothing going on.
Tingling where? Over here?
Right
Wait, just tell me. Nothing? Here?
Yeah.
Here?
Yeah.
Wait.
Hello, Posty.
And then he snaps into Balki to do the award. You guys, you should watch the whole clip.
What did he do? He hit him on the head or something?
He hit him on the head. He's like, right here. What? Tingling? Right here?
Yeah.
Tingling. So brilliant. And he's wearing the tuxedo. It looks fantastic.
Okay. Dimitri. Where did we see Dimitri in this episode? He is in the apartment on the end table wearing a bullet hat and a suit. A little Dimitri tuxedo.
He's got his own little Meposian tuxedo for Dimitri.
A little sheep tuxedo. So that was a nice little touch, as it always is.
Couple of good Balky-isms this episode. We could play Pin the Tail on the Mule and Bob for Potatoes.
Bob for potatoes. Why the story? I'll go splash some on. I'll go splash some tuxedo on. I'd love to rub those elbows. And of course, the ending line, I second that emotion.
Don't be ridiculous.
Of course I have. Don't be ridiculous.
Only said once, but we get
Get out of the city.
we get that's a good point. That's a very good point.
And a big old popo. We got some good ones, actually. A lot of classic ones.
Oh, Papa.
Other running jokes in this episode. Balky's Me posing in tuxedo is a
First
new
appearance.
one. It will come back. Balky laughing at his own joke. We had a big instance of that. Balky like bear hugging Larry from around the waist and just lifting him and carrying him
That's
somewhere
like
else.
every third episode, Balky picks
Yeah.
up Larry and moves him somewhere.
Larry being panicky and Larry's huffy laugh.
It's a measure to pleat you.
Yeah.
So good.
And now we're at my favorite part of our show, which is called Perfect Strangers Today, in which we discuss if this whole story were happening today, how would this episode be different?
Well, I think we've established Balky would look sharp. Like, no one would scoff. Everyone would turn and look, but they'd be like, that dude looks cool. Where did he come from? Look at this guy.
Yeah.
It'd be hipster.
But
it'd be
also,
trendy.
only Balky would be able to wear this tuxedo because if it caught on and other people were doing
Cultural
it is
appropriation.
cultural appropriation. Yes. Larry, as an aspiring photographer and photojournalist,
Where are the photographers these days?
they're on the gram.
Yeah, social
They're
media
on the
ties
gram.
in again. But yeah.
All of our PS todays come down to social media. But Larry would have his branding set up on his Instagram. He would have a
Absolutely.
portfolio website. He would, instead of like Balky stepping up and speaking to Roger Moore with words, Balky would just like innocently tweet Roger Moore
yeah.
or slide into his
On Larry's
DMs
behalf.
on Instagram and be like, my cousin Larry,
Yeah.
blah, blah,
Oh
blah.
my God. And Larry would be like, Balky, what are you doing? You got to delete that. Don't send
Unsend,
him a message.
unsend. Yeah.
Control Z. Control Z.
And Balky would be like, too late. He's already seen it.
But man, this is where a lot of creatives get legitimate work now from
They're on
just
the gram.
being on
Yeah.
Instagram. The other thing I thought of, and this is something I ran into in a couple of places, it's technology combining with art. There's actually two crazy inventions going on right now. The first one is, have you seen these augmented reality art galleries?
I went to one last weekend.
Did
There's
you
a
really?
Very cool place.
Okay, explain
there's
what it
three
is
locations
and how you do it. Yeah.
called Art Tech House, ARTECHOUSE. It's technology driven art exhibits. In 3 cities, they're open, operating under limited capacity. But they have an app, and you see augmented, like the whole exhibit is interactive with your body.
Well,
and,
explain the experience to someone who
very
doesn't know
cool.
what this is.
Explain the experience.
Yeah.
You walk in, there's like the main room has all these big screens, and there's whatever exhibit is playing, there's like massive things moving around on the screen. And then it's all about sensors of the viewer, the visitor, and you can change what's happening in that piece of art.
Whoa.
And then depending on the exhibit, there are augmented reality, more prominent elements. Like one time I went to an exhibit in the before times there, and one of the side rooms just had all these tables, and when you walked into the room, they issued you a tablet, and you hold it up and interact with each piece in that room with the tablet, and certain animations would come up.
Oh, it's so cool.
Very, very cool stuff. But they have an app too that you can use around the space
Yeah.
to see secret things.
Oh, wow.
Or even now in pandemic, this one place, this particular venue, Artec House, developed their app even more so that you can have augmented reality art in the world wherever you are. Like
Wherever you are. Well, I mean, the experience, imagine, listener, you walk up to a painting and it's a painting. It's a traditional canvas painting on the wall. Then you hold up your phone and you look at it through your phone. And on your phone, the painting literally comes alive.
It's super cool.
It starts moving. It pops off the canvas into the environment around you. Now, imagine you come back a month later you hold up your camera, and it's a completely different animation on the thing. It's so you can change it that easily. It is so much fun, and it's so cool.
So if this episode was happening today, right, in that scene with all the snooty people in the art gallery, we would also see people with like the latest iPhones or whatever, just pointing, like Pokemoning it up around the space.
Yeah, like Pokemon Go.
Find out
to catch
more.
everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Or maybe they would hold it up and they'd be like, and then say something very snooty about the piece, like, the interaction in this is blah, blah, blah.
Oh, this animation is lacking.
Yeah.
I like how it guides the eye around the viewer's eye. Then real quick, one last thing that's happening right now. It's so new and so weird. I don't understand it, but I'm kind of fascinated. Something called NFT. You may have seen this trending. Hashtag NFT, non-fungible tokens. Basically, what has happened is people have combined Bitcoin, blockchain, kind of encrypted currency with JPEGs and art and video clips, and they're trading it.
I have not heard about that.
These kids are selling JPEGs for thousands of dollars. It's wild. I don't understand it, and I don't know where it's going to go, but this is a new evolution of art, technology, collectibles, and some kind of open source currency. It's weird.
Yeah, if anyone out there is an NFT expert, please call in and tell us more about this, or leave us a message,
Non-fungible token was my nickname in high school. Except that joke, sorry.
All right, we have some shout-outs this week. We have been getting really amazing feedback and support from our friends and as well as people we don't know yet. Our friends, our listeners, both through personal channels and through the show's social media. So everybody who sent any note, thank you so much. It makes us feel so lovely to know that we've brought you a bit of joy through Perfect Strangers. So the shout outs today, we're just going to read out a couple from the Facebook group.
We have a Facebook group.
What's the Facebook group called?
It's called the Dance of Joy Podcast Group. I don't have a clever name for it.
We have to come up with a wittier name for that group.
Yes.
But we have a Facebook group. Please, you can join in there and have a discussion with us. John, I don't want to mispronounce his name, Attema.
Atema.
This is Atema. John Atema, the same John from Colorado who called in a little while ago.
I believe this is John from Colorado who we heard from, who joined the Facebook group and left us a comment.
Amazing. Thank you so much, John. John now says 2 thoughts on the Christmas episode that we spoke about not long ago. 1, what good is mistletoe at Balky's family Christmas?
Is that because they're all related? Who are you kissing? I don't know.
What good is mistletoe at Balky's family Christmas? And 2, the little girl who plays Marie Twinkassetti was playing to the back row. No lines, just steal the scene.
I love it. I love that phrase, playing to the back row. You know what that means, right? Do we need to explain it?
Playing to the back row. I
you don't know?
No.
It's from theater.
Well, that I know that much, but what does it mean?
It means you play your actions big and with a lot of movement so that the back row can see your movement so you don't just disappear. You play to the back row so that everybody in front, it just means exaggerating for the people in the back, making it big.
Yeah, and she did it because she didn't have any lines.
Yeah, Marie Tuquit said he was playing it big, and John noticed.
Yes. Thank you so much, John, for these beautiful observations.
I love it.
And then we have an Instagram message from one of our biggest fans, Spencer.
Yes.
Also known as @QueenOfNoChill, also known as @FattyGucciBeltBuckle,
Get out of the city!
The best Instagram handle I have ever seen. Spencer writes, by the way, the episode called, by the way, Since I Lost My Baby is the name of a Temptations song from 1965. Now, we usually try to explain the episode titles. We missed this one, so thank you so much for sending us this message. Spencer says she lived with her grandma when she was little, and her grandma always played the Temptations.
I love the Temptations. I should have remembered this song. I'm going to start Googling these titles beforehand.
Spencer also wrote, I'm realizing that Larry kind of evolves into more of Twinkassetti as the series goes on. Interesting.
That's
good
interesting
observation
to think about. Okay.
And we had talked about Larry's Diary fan fiction a few episodes back. Spencer is totally into this idea.
Appleton, I read your diary. You're a sick
You're a
man.
sick man.
I still need to know why he thinks he's a sick man.
And also, have you noticed that some of the episodes are out of order on Hulu? I noticed on IMDb that it's a different order.
Yeah, that we kind of discussed that, how the things are kind of flipped around. It's on the whims of the network. Who knows why, but
These are all wonderful details. So thank you to both John and Spencer for writing in. Keep them coming.
that's it for this week. Next week, sister, the cousins are going to become big brothers.
What?
Very exciting. And the best part, we learn a Miposian kids game.
Get out of the city.
I can't wait.
I can't wait for that either.
Every time we learn anything about Mipos, I'm all in.
All in for, what was it? Dachmach Bing Bing.
Dachmach Bing Bing. Maybe that should be the name of the Facebook group. Or Ding Ding
Dachmach Bing.
Or Ding Ding Mahmoud. Give me the Ding Ding Mahmoud. We need so listener, if you can come up with a funny name for the Facebook group, what do you want to be known as? The Meepiats? Do we just call it the Meepiats?
Yeah, the Meepiats.
The Meepiats.
If you want to hear us speak more Meposian, please come back and keep listening or visit our website, danceofjoypod.com. We have all of our links there. Every podcasting platform where you can find this show is there. All of our social media links are there. You can also leave us a voice message there. There's a little button at the bottom of the site. Or you can email us at danceofjoypod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.
Share this show with a friend, listener. Spread it. Word of mouth is the best way to help us grow. Thanks for listening, and now we are so happy.
Now we are so happy we do the dance of joy.
Hey. Dachmach Bing Bing.